minority is a way of extending a kind of fragile but entirely conditional form of whiteness upon Asians, right? There is a kind of creeping, sort of attempt to cast Asian Americans as basically honorary whites, as a way, I think, at a time when racial demographics are changing and white people are falling into minority status, of expanding that group that is enveloped in white privilege in order to ensure that they can still exercise majority power. Right. This is an experience that Jews have faced in the United States, that the Irish have, that the Italians, many other groups.
What do you think the conditions are that cause this honorary whiteness to fall away, and also alternatively to come into being?
Well, it's not a conspiracy, right? So it's no
Right.
one's specific plan, but it is a kind of historical phenomenon. And one of the things that's driving it is post-1965 immigration policy, right? So post-1965 immigration policy basically favors elite Asian workers who are fulfilling particular job shortages or worker shortages in the United States. So, for example, one of the first early waves of Asian immigrants into the United States came because of the Vietnam War and because of Medicare, Medicaid, right? This created a demand for medical services in the United States that we couldn't fulfill with the native workforce. And so doctors and other medical professionals were recruited mainly from South Asia. And so, in successive waves, we've seen this kind of recruitment, so that when you look at who's actually allowed to come into the country, Asian immigrants tend to be more highly educated. They tend to come from middle-class backgrounds. They tend to be more readily assimilable and often come with worker sponsors. Whereas, for example, Latino workers do not come in nearly those numbers in that kind of situation of class privilege.
Just one question about, as we're talking about the Asian and Black communities right now, especially with the whole recent events with Peter Lang. I just kind of wondering what your take is on race relations and possibly how these communities can either better improve their dialogue at this time with such high tensions.
Well, I think that one of the real limitations in our discussion of the Peter Lang case that's happening around the country now is that we cling, I think, to an idea about justice that is entirely far too retributive, right? Somehow retribution and punishment is the only alternative for us. And so, we think that the real solution to the problem of extraordinary police violence being visited, particularly upon African Americans, is to get more convictions of police officers who are involved in these incidents.
Right.
And while I don't doubt that could help some, the reason, right, the cause of all of this violence is not a lack of convictions in these cases. The cause is that police have too much power. Right? Police have too much power, and the way that police power has been targeted is to the disadvantage, particularly of African Americans. And so police officers are put in situations where we rely much too heavily on policing and incarceration to deal with social problems that can't be solved through policing and incarceration. And the resulting conflict is causing tensions to escalate and need to be addressed as broadly social, in terms of its the cause, rather than just simply in terms of its effects, which is this, incredible rate of violence that we see.
And so what is your vision for your work against racism?
Well, Change Lab operates according to this really basic idea that in order to be able to address issues of social inequity, we need to break with conservative schema, which is just basically the ways in which we think about things that we automatically default to when we get confused, right? It's the ways that function in our lives like common sense. And so what informs racial thinking at that level of common sense, I believe, is something called white cultural hegemony, right? White cultural hegemony is the kind of fog that envelops us that makes it difficult for us to see when we're actually reproducing ideas about race, even when we think we're not. And so what we've been trying to do is to winnow through people's belief systems, the belief systems that inform racial justice activism, to identify the things that we think would be most effective. And so
can
that's
you give an example? Sorry to interrupt, but can you give an example of what reproduction looks like in our everyday kind of thinking?
Well, the way that we reproduce ideas about race is that we continue to insist that we are essentially who we are by race, right? Which is a habit that a lot of us have fallen into. So we think of ourselves, for example, as Asian American activists as primarily Asian American. That one of the ways in which you could explain the way in which we behave in the world is that we are Asian American, and not that we're reacting to the circumstances that an unjust system imposes on too many Asian people, right? And so there are a lot of different ways in which this thing gets played out, right? People talk about blood, for example, as a source of, as a kind of idea about race. For example, we talk about sickle cell anemia as being a black disease. Well, sickle cell anemia is not a black disease, right? Sickle cell anemia is a disease that results from people living under certain circumstances in which malaria rates are extraordinarily high because there are lots of malaria mosquitoes. The people who survive those circumstances tend to have this sickle cell characteristic. They could be anyone. It has nothing to do with being black, especially because black is a modern, mostly contemporary construct.
And so, how can your everyday person kind of start taking steps to become aware of their own thinking?
Well, I think that it helps to understand where these ideas originate. So, there's a thing called religio racism, right? That has been around for a very long time. Asian Americans in particular understand religio racism because it's much of what has been the foundation of something called Orientalism, which is the objectification and study of Asian peoples for the purpose of plunder, right? Mostly in Europe, but now all over the West. But racism, as we know it in the United States, the racism that informed American white supremacy is based in science, right, or pseudoscience. And it's based in something we call scientism, the belief that you can explain everything with science, right? We suffer under that delusion in this society more than most places in the world. We believe everything can be explained by science, when in fact science is, like everything else, an artifact of culture, right? And so one of the ways we could move away from it is to stop just thinking in those kinds of categories, stop assuming that people will behave and act in ways that are triggered in our belief system by phenotype, by how they look or how they identify. Another thing, though, that I think is necessary is, Change Lab's work mainly is targeting activist leaders, right? Because we believe those people have contact with organized groups of people in society who then are able to engage in a dialogue, develop ideas, and then inform action based on those ideas. So we target most of what we do to what we call race intellectuals. And race intellectual can be the leader of a local organization like the Center for Intercultural Organizing here in Portland, or someone who's a professor of sociology at the University of California at Berkeley. So it's a pretty wide range of different kinds of people. And what we try to do is mix them up together in these conversations so that different people informed by different experiences can actually contribute to a discussion that might lead in a fruitful direction around race. So, it's because we target those leaders, a lot of what we are trying to do is help people think politically about race. Too many of us think about race in this sort of uncritical way, right? We think that race has always been a thing. We think of it as cultural. Some of us think of it as biological. Many of us were surprised when the Human Genome Mapping Project revealed that race actually isn't much of a thing, right? The reality is that race is a political construct created in order to be able to support a political system of white supremacy that was created in the service of capitalism, right? And so it was created in order to promote some people being able to make extraordinary profits. So we live in a society that originally, in terms of our economy, was founded in the dollars raised through the of slaves and through the transatlantic slave trade, and a society in which the initial fortunes were built through the labor of enslaved people, right? So, for most of U.S. history up to the Civil War, most of the wealth in the United States was in the North, right, in the non-slave states. But the greatest concentrations of wealth were in the South, in the slave trades, and because of slavery, because of the extraordinary profits that people could produce. As a result of being able to produce those profits, they were also able to squeeze everybody else out of being able to compete with them, right? So these large slave plantations were able to create a monopoly on wealth. So ordinary free soilers, white people who were not, initially capitalized through the slave trade, couldn't compete with them. So in spite of the fact that they could get land, in spite of the fact that they could participate in the political system if they happened to be male and own land, they weren't able to compete with these large enterprises that had so much capital from slavery. And that drove those people to have to move west, right? And so many of those people became fodder in the American Indian Wars, basically participating in Indian removal and native genocide. And so, these dynamics that are deeply rooted in our history continue to inform us and the way that we live now. So what we want to do is parse that out with people to help us to see the ways in which these things continue to reproduce themselves within our daily lives. We deal not just with interpersonal racism or institutional racism, but also with something we call structural racism. And structural racism is the way that racism is manifest as a historical construct across institutions, informed by interpersonal racism and justified by it, and as it exists within our culture, right? So when you think about things like ghettos, where you see people of color densely concentrated, it's not usually as a result of contemporary laws, right? These are historical constructs. So ghettos were created when residential segregation was actually legal, or at least by convention, widely practiced, right? But the fact that that happened, combined with many other things, right, in the realm of public policy, policies that allowed, for example, redlining in the distribution of mortgages, create a situation in which poor people living in ghettos end up living in ghettos through generations, right? That's structural racism. And structural racism doesn't require anyone to have intent to be reproduced. They are simply reproduced by our accepting that those things are natural phenomena that we can't do anything about.
My name is Lisa Loving. I have to make an announcement. This is the KBOO Evening News. I'm saying I'm just not going to mess around and say our computer system's completely crashed. It took our entire news broadcast with it tonight, but luckily we have an incredibly compelling live guest. And I have to say it is with a lot of pride that we have Scott Nakagawa here talking about his career, talking about racism. I'm joined by Jenna Yokoyama and Kanan Schlesinger, who would normally be our anchors tonight, as you're so accustomed to hearing it. And we had planned to potentially take callers later this hour, but we thought we might go to a little music right now. And so give us a few minutes, and we're going to come back with more of this compelling interview. Thank you. This is the KBOO Evening News.
You are listening to the KBOO Tuesday Evening News, and this KBOO program has been made possible in part by KBOO Foundation members and a grant from Portland Saturday Market, From Our Hands to Yours, celebrating 43 years of American arts and crafts, freshly prepared foods with an international flavor, and local music every Saturday and Sunday from March through Christmas Eve in Waterfront Park. Local artisans, international food, live music, PortlandSaturdayMarket.com.
understand what's really happening in Oregon. There's no law, there's no due process happening in our courts. The government is down there operating secret courts and kangaroo courts, an abuse of law and justice and due process in every sense. America, we need to recognize that our courts, all of them, right down to the local level, they're not operating on law anymore. We need to not delude ourselves. These courts are doing whatever they want. The judges do whatever they want. They make up rules and dictates on whims. They don't have any lawful authority. What these judges are doing has no authority in law, not in God's law, not in the authority the people gave them, not in our Constitution. The authority of these judges is nothing more than a gun to our head. End of story. And they're getting away with it. Because we let this happen in our nation. And because America doesn't yet have the courage to stand up and say no more. Despite its tough talk and carrying around guns and saying, well, we're going to stop the tyranny when it comes, the tyranny is already here. And when we should be standing peaceful and principled, we're busy diverting ourselves with entertainment and excuses. The patriots in Oregon, they went down there and they loved their neighbor. They stood up for the rule of law, they defended the Constitution, and they tried to say no more to this illegal, unconstitutional federal government. And so they assassinated Lavoy Finicum. They hauled our patriot brothers and sisters and friends off to jail. And now they're being led in shackles into these courtrooms and giving this pretense of due process. And that's what happened this week as they were arraigned. Now, the arraignment, they bring them in and they read them formal charges. Yeah, after being a month in jail, they're just now getting to that. And they have them plead innocent or guilty. But the patriots knew this week. And so as they shuffled them into this tiny courtroom that was intentionally made small, they used a small room so that people could not get in and bear witness to the corruption. No cameras are allowed. These are secret courts. You don't get to actually see. The world doesn't get to see what these judges are doing. They're like cockroaches hiding in the shadows and afraid of the light of day. And that's why we need to start shouting from the rooftops what they're doing to people. Because in our courtrooms, even real criminals with real victims, even they're not getting due process, friends. The rule of law does not exist in these courts. They're doing whatever they want. And our patriots, they stood up to that judge this week. They knew that. They made no pretense as they were led in shackles, and the judge carries on their platitudes where they say, well, we want you to know that you're innocent until proven guilty, and that you have constitutional rights. See, because slaves are convinced with these false platitudes, this impression of due process when really there is none. The patriots knew better. And I want to give voice a little bit to the words that they spoke in that courtroom this week. Many patriots showed up, the Sharp family and others. They bared witness to the corruption. But these men, they've got a heavy burden to bear. Their lives, fortunes, and sacred honor is on the line. Stop and think about that. These men are away from their families and their wives and their children and their jobs. We need to really be taking that seriously. This government has nothing to do with law. This is terrorism, friends. And the greatest terrorists are our own government and those black-robed tyrants sitting up there on the bench. They don't care about law. They do whatever they want. So the patriots walk into court and they're giving them these platitudes about their innocence until proven guilty, and they started speaking up. Ryan Payne said, it's difficult to understand the presumption of innocence when I've spent the last month in jail and led around in chains wherever I go. Ryan Bundy came in behind him. He took the mic and he backed him up. We're being treated as we're guilty, Ryan said. So I don't understand the presumption of innocence. David Fry also spoke up. He said, it's weird. Innocent until proven guilty. Shackled up. Jason Patrick, he called them right out when they asked him if he understood his constitutional rights. Which, of course, we don't have. We have God-given rights, not granted by the Constitution, but our command to government that they will obey those rights. Jason said to the judge, "I understand I have no rights at all. You're the federal government, and you're going to do whatever you want." See, in our courtrooms and in our justice system and with our government, they do not recognize any of our rights. They haul us before them at the point of a gun, and then make a pretense by telling us we have rights and due process, as they drag us through secret courts and kangaroo trials, lock us in chains and keep us from our families, deny bail, and put our patriots in solitary confinement. It's time to get serious. It's time to stop making excuses. Friends, we did this to this nation. We need to beg God for mercy. We need to appeal to heaven for real answers, and we need to start being willing to stand up and love our neighbor as ourselves, to support our brothers and sisters and friends who are persecuted, and to recognize that our government and our nation is in a state of complete lawlessness in every sense of the word. But the patriots are standing up down there, even from jail, all the way from Ammon Bundy to Pete Santilli, locked away because he reported the real news. They know the real story, and it's time we started knowing the real story. It's time we started shouting from the rooftops what our judges and corrupt politicians are doing in secret, because that's the one thing they're trying to prevent. They keep the cameras out, anyone that's released. They give them orders telling them they can't speak to people, they can't communicate on the internet. It goes on and on and on. The abuses continue. What are you and I and our friends and neighbors? What is America going to do about the terrorists that are running this nation?
Good evening. How you doing?
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. It's an honor. Brother Wood, good evening, sir.
How?
Al. Brother Peanut, good evening.
Thank you, G. Thank you for having me, man.
You got it. Anytime, man. Anytime. As I say, the saga continues. We got a lot to talk about. Thank you, everybody, for coming out and listening. Space, if you want to, I know you're not going to be hanging out all evening with us, so if you want to get into a couple of things, I'll let you take the floor.
You'll let me kick it off?
Kick it off, sweetie.
Okay. So I guess the title of this is Silencing the Movement, and the reason why I think it's titled that is because of what we're about to discuss, which is making an example of the Bundys at this point, and anybody else who dare take action and actually stand up to what they feel is, unconstitutional land grabs, etc. I think that these guys have kind of created a movement, and that really scares the government. But they're all just my opinions. What I was going to kick off here with was the actual indictment. And the indictment, I have it pulled up on my screen right now, it's for Cliven Bundy, Ryan Bundy, Ammon Bundy, Ryan Payne, and Peter Santilli. And the violations are listed as, first one is conspiracy to commit an offense against the United States. That's pretty heavy. The second one, conspiracy to impede and injure a federal officer. The third one, assault on a federal officer. Fourth, threatening a federal law enforcement officer. Fifth, use and carry of a firearm in relation to a crime of violence. And I'd like to note that Cliven has never carried a gun, according to his daughter. The next one, obstruction of the due administration of justice. The next one, interference with interstate commerce by extortion. The next one, interstate travel in aid of extortion. And finally, aiding and abetting.
My God.
Dated February 17th, 2016 by the Clerk District Court of Nevada. Yeah. So there you have it.
It's obvious that they plan on every way in the world trying to bust these people for everything they possibly can. Or, like we said there, the tactics that they usually have is the add-ons that bump everything up to try to get you a plea bargain for something less.
Real quick, want to give a salute. Good evening, Brother Nugs. Thanks for coming through.
Evening, folks. Evening, panel. Thank you for having me.
Sure.
Just real quick, I did post that link. I was going to say I did put that link on the external. If anybody wants to click on it, they can see the indictment.
And being real quick, Space, if you don't mind, being that Nugs just showed, because his inbox, his internals is blank. Is there any way you can redo those links, if you don't mind putting them back in the internal file?
Yeah, I'll do that.
Because Nugs, as to his internals empty, so he doesn't have any of our stuff.
I did just put the document link in there for him right now already. Cool. The other links are more or less.
Yeah, I can get those.
Media spin on the whole situation. I mean, there's a lot of spin on these, so
what do you think?
A lot of anti-government language. Sorry.
Space, what do you think about this? I mean, like we were talking earlier, of course, the man's 74 years old. He is a fucking powerful figure. I mean, he gets the Patriots moving, active, going, whatever you want to say.
Absolutely.
They will fight for that motherfucking man in a heartbeat. And they're fucking, these motherfuckers they fear him. They are afraid that if they let the man out, there's going to be standoffs everywhere. And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to shut him down.
Well, the Bundys have brought light where there was darkness.
Absolutely.
The BLM and the federal government have been silently, more or less, not 100%, but let's say quietly, able to do these land grabs and take over these ranches and penalize these ranchers without much media attention. And that all changed when Cliven took a stand.
Mm-hmm. And the government had to shut that up really quick. They had to stop that because, as Benjamin Franklin stated, those who overthrow liberty must first begin with the freedom of speech. So this is just a slow totalitarian tiptoe,
The scary part is to think that just under Obama's term alone, he's got 265 million acres he's taken.
Right. And then you couple that with his buddy-buddy relationship to the UN, and then you get called a conspiracy theorist when you point out UN Agenda 21 and the consolidation of land.
Yeah.
That's a lot of acres. Can you say that again, Wood? I think that was in the millions. That's absurd.
Yeah, just Obama alone in the last 7 years has taken 265 million acres.
Jeez and fucking crap.
And apparently there's a couple hundred more thousand acres on the books too before he leaves, right?
No, I think 80 something, 80 million or 80 is more than 80,000. Is 80 million, I think. He wants to do another 80 million before he's out of office.
That's a small country.
So for you fellas back east, when this all first broke down, you're like, well, I don't understand what he's talking about, so I don't care. 265 million acres. He wants to do 80 more, and you got to think about all the assholes before him and all the assholes after him, and you wonder why the guys in Oregon did what they did. This has been going on for 40 years, and it's getting down to the last few, and they're trying to take a stand, and people are like, I don't understand, so I don't care. Well, I know you understand 265 million acres. Anybody can understand that.
No, they'd rather bend over and watch football and pretend that Bernie Sanders is going to save them from whatever they think he's going to save them from.
No, I'm not. No, dude, I'm talking about people here on YouTube too. They're only going to make a stand when it comes to the Second Amendment, I guess. I mean, that'll be the final draw. You guys got to look at what's.
Yeah, you're right.
Real quick. What's up, Brother Mose? Welcome.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? How's everybody doing tonight?
Good.
Good, man. Well,
Space Buns, how you doing?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Everybody doing? Oh, I'm doing great. Monty, how you doing, bud? Quasar,
How you doing, man?
Wood,
Even,
how's everybody doing?
brother.
My boy G.
silence in the movement, my brother. They are silencing
Oh
the
man, you
movement.
know what? You guys really make a valid point when it comes to that. I mean, there's some people that are just focusing on the Second Amendment and not really looking at this whole situation with the BLM. And to be honest with you, I really didn't know much about it until I started just reading about it. Started watching some other stuff. I don't know if you guys ever watch Vice News.
Oh, yeah.
They have a
Oh, yeah.
YouTube channel.
Oh, yeah.
Watch it on. I was
Roughly
moving on
News, Vice
HBO. They did a
News.
they did an outstanding.
Be careful of their online reports when they do their online, like they'll have some little skinny jean wearing fucker write an article and put it on their online site, but their video journalism is outstanding. But whoever's writing their fucking articles, I know they wear skinny jeans. I know they do.
Do they?
No, I watched their videos, man. The videos are really good. They really do give you a good insight as to what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
Because to be honest with you, I mean, think about it. I mean, I'm one that I wasn't really. I didn't know the ranchers were being oppressed like they are now. I didn't know that, not even ranchers, but I mean, we're having to deal with that with fucking farmers here with the water situation.
Yep.
And it's fucking crazy. It's to the point now that the government wants to control every fucking bit of land and regulate the shit out of it.
I think it's important that also we keep on target and point out the fact that this is an agenda. This is an agenda being played out by the UN. This is the part of the agenda where they shut down the food supplies to 360 million Americans. The other part of it is when they start to shut down the vitamin supplies to 360 million Americans. They've already started doing that with organic milk, whole milk, and stuff like that. They want to literally Codex Alimentarius. They want to outlaw vitamin C and vitamin B.
Well, and I want to, and that's you just brought up a great point about the agricultural part. Look in California, they purposely shut the water off in California. They shut it off to millions of acres of farmland, and now it's dried up, and they said it would drop.
And think about it. A lot of the feed. Have you noticed how outrageous eggs are right now?
Yeah, but there's something you got to look for, guys. Listen, there's something to add to this that hasn't reared its face yet. Okay, the people that are actually willing to pay attention are understanding now. Holy shit! Look at what's been happening to these ranchers. You have to look into waters of the U.S. WOTUS. Look it up and prepare to scare the shit out of yourself. Because they are taking over the agriculture by running these farmers and ranchers off their land and using any means necessary to do it. And then waters of the U.S. is passed, and that's how they're going to take the water.
Yeah,
From everybody.
They're wanting to privatize it.
Not just ranchers. It'll be from everybody.
It'll be from everybody. They want to control all the navigable waters. I can't not say that fucking word.
Navigatable. The other thing on that note is I just saw another story in Texas where the water came out of the faucets black. So, I mean, if we know that government running anything, it's a scary thought to think of government being in charge of our water. Seriously, because of all the mismanagement of funds, the infrastructure, the safety, the chemicals, all that stuff comes to my mind.
And you know how they're getting away with it, guys? You know how they're getting away with it? Because the conservatives will not get off their fucking asses unless it has to do with their Second Amendment, America. You guys got to look at what they're doing. The fucking left-wing socialist progressive movement has come in under the guise of these activist groups. They make up an activist group. They have a few people in it.
Club.
They dump millions and millions of dollars into them, and that's how they're getting all these laws passed. It's all a disguise. They're riding on the back of these fucking skinny jean little hippie vegan faggots. They're riding on the backs of them and taking all this land and shit, and we've just been sitting back going, oh, well, that sucks. Well, now it's happening. Guys, we're done. Look at what they're doing. What's the next step? And let's look at Lavoie. What Lavoie was trying to tell us, he's like, You guys think it's just the ranchers and farmers now. What's next? It's going to be the hunters and the fishers and everybody, the outdoorsmen, the hikers, the campers. It's going to be everybody. They do not want you on this land. That's eventually what's going to happen. You got to ask yourself why. What the fuck are they getting ready for?
That's right. Something's going on. There's a bigger picture here.
265 million acres, man. 265 million.
And then you couple that, guys, with the 100-mile exclusion zone, unconstitutional zone from the oceans within. I believe at some point they're going to move everybody out of those areas too.
Well, no, if you guys, I mean, we're on this right now, but if you guys that aren't paying attention, you need to look at what's going on with Turkey right now. Turkey and Saudi Arabia and Russia and Iran.
Yeah,
that shit is about to pop.
Absolutely.
And that's going to be what's going to get everybody's fucking. That's going to be the next distractor. World War III is going to start in the Middle East. Everybody's going to be focused on that. Next thing you know, we're going to be all fucking corralled into the fucking into the cities and shit.
Well, they'll use the larger false flag of World War III or IV, whatever you want to label it, and then they'll cause total complete chaos under the economic collapse because there's World War. And then I don't hear anybody talking about this, but the rationing that's going to go on, just like in World War II and World War I, which is going to cause even more problems. And they're going to hit us with everything, dude. Full spectrum dominance. That's right out of the Pentagon. Talking points. Full spectrum dominance. Total warfare. There's from social, from weather, from space, from air. It doesn't matter. They're going for broke. They're going to hit us with everything, is what I'm saying.
That's something to think about.
Well, isn't the overall goal of Agenda? I can't remember where I read this, but isn't one of the overall goals is the elite in the Agenda 21 is almost like Hunger Games? Don't they want to be able to drive from Los Angeles to New York and never see another person?
Yeah, they're sick of seeing us rabble, or us useless eaters, or us meat puppets, whatever elite term you want. And this is right out of their words. This ain't me making that up. That's their words. It's whatever you want to call it. Yeah, they don't want to see us no more.
I don't know. It's spooky. And now they're talking about drafting females. And I know my little girls don't want to go fight in a war. I didn't raise no butch dykes. They don't want to go fight no fucking war. But it all makes sense. It fits right into the agenda. They want to depopulate. They're going to have to send the women too.
Well, that's just it. And if they can, they're dehumanizing us on every level too. The dehumanization of people, of basic good people, that's going on right now is really at an all-time high.
How long do you guys think a war would last?
It depends.
I bet the next world war lasts for maybe someplace between 5 and 10 years.
Well, you got to figure too, because of the internet. You got to figure too, because of the internet, though, we the people in America aren't the only ones that know what are going on. These other countries are going to have their people and their populations that are pissed off too. It's just like in Greece and Athens when they had the fucking bailouts and shit. You had old ladies out there throwing shoes at the politicians because they took their pensions and their savings accounts and stuff. People are delusional. Americans are delusional specifically, and they don't think that's going to happen here. It's going to happen here.
And
I believe it.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, that's the reason why I really don't keep a lot of money in my fucking bank, because of that same reason. There's no real reason. If you really believe that the FDIC is gonna fucking take care of you, you're on fucking joking there, man. Especially if there's a serious matter where it's national security, all those fucking accounts are gonna be frozen. You're shit out of luck. And
you guys see that shit about Bank of America is running those drills right now? The bank holiday drills?
Yep. That
you
is
got that?
Yep,
and then
that.
No, what is it? Tell me.
They're running drills for bank holidays where they lock the doors and only let 3 customers in at a time and
with
blah, blah,
armed
blah.
guards.
Well, not just that, but for the last over a year, they've been actually sending their CEOs to preparedness classes, sending them to get firearms training. They're buying gear, they're buying hideouts. What was it? It was J.P. Morgan a while back, a memo got leaked from their top executives. This memo basically stated it was telling the lower execs to get ready for the financial collapse because it's almost here. And this was around the time that they had all their assassinations or suicides or whatever they was going on there.
Well, I'll tell you, we don't keep our money in the bank, right? Me and my wife, we like to have, like income tax returns. When we go to take it out, it used to be no problem. Okay, whatever. Now you go try and take it out, you got to answer like 50 questions, and they basically, it took my wife 45 minutes last year to get our income tax returns out because they were questioning us and like asking us why you don't need to take it out. We can do this, we can do that. They were doing everything they could for us to keep our money in their bank. They did not want to give us our money. And finally, she's like, you guys need to just give us our goddamn money. They do not want people to have cash.
Find a new fucking bank, one of the two.
Yeah, well, did you see what? I don't know if you guys are. Do you watch Chris Ann Hall? Do you listen to Chris Ann Hall at all?
I do.
You hear? There's 5 states right now that are standing up, and one of the deals is like Arizona and a couple of the other ones. They made, they're writing up stuff saying that gold, silver, and platinum are considered legal tender in their state. They're setting up for the big collapse. I mean, it's coming.
Well, they also know when World War III or IV, whatever you want to label it, because there's a lot of argument about that. When it happens, the BRICS nations will go to a gold, backed exchange, and if we, the Western world, want to compete with that, we have to too. But the thing is they're gonna kind of do it a little bit differently. They're not gonna allow us to be trading in gold and silver. The elite will be on their fucking false credit swaps and their derivatives and all that bullshit. And they're gonna stick us on a fucking digital currency. There's no doubt in my mind.
Well, I think we're going to have to learn how to barter again.
Well, they're outlawing it. Look at New Orleans. New Orleans actually has laws against it, against yard sales, garage sales, trading things, buying things secondhand for cash with cash. It's already here.
So far, it ain't here in Kentucky. That's one good thing.
What are you getting at, 420, about Chris Ann Hall? She wasn't on Vice News, was she?
He's just, I think, citing your sources. I don't know.
Oh yeah, Chris Ann Hall is awesome.
Yeah, she is.
But the only reason I was telling him about Vice News was Vice News actually went, their online reports, you could tell were written by some little fucking bastard that doesn't know shit and probably never couldn't fight his way out of a wet paper bag. But their actual video documentary that they did, like 15 minutes long, it's titled, "This does not resemble a standoff whatsoever." I mean, they actually did it legit. There's hardly anybody here. And you could come and glow, walk around as you please, and the guy's like, it's nothing like what the mainstream media is saying. But still, they get a bad rap.
And a bad set of charges too. Well, just to go back to those charges, those are for the Bundy standoff, but I think it's weird. I guess the government used the Oregon deal to just collect everybody in one place, and that's what they saw it as an opportunity, and they put so many resources there in Oregon. I mean, the town has been terrorized by the FBI for weeks. Before, during, and after that.
Is it just me, or for some reason the mainstream media hardly ever talked about this whole Oregon deal? It seems to me like
they barely touched it.
They barely touched it. It was like one of those, fucking 10-second fucking news stories, and on to the next one.
No, the only mainstream guy that did an outstanding job, and he wouldn't touch on the standoff. He only touched on the Hammonds. Was Lou Dobbs. Lou Dobbs on the Fox Business Report did an awesome job. Man, Mango, you got some hella background noise.
Hey, dude,
I live off a fucking highway. What the fuck do you want? I'm enough sticks over here. Let me do a quick shout out here. Blues Girl 65. Good evening, sweetie. Mr. Lock and Load. Mindy, what's going on? Brother Sparks. Real quick, FYI, James, Dave, Smurf, Delaware Patriot, Brian McNair. I sent you all links if you guys want to join. I think I sent some more links. Can't remember all the names, but you guys got it if you all want to join. Sorry about the background. I got a fucking highway right in front of me, so I can't do nothing about it.
That's all right, dude.
Sparks, what's going on, brother? Good to see you. Spark, I sent you a link too. My line in the sand. True, what's up, my brother? Trace, M. Elliott, Tommy Boy 9, what's going on? Dave, politically incorrect. 420, you got a link if you want to join. I think that's about it.
I want to read something to you guys. I hit back on something that you
What's
talked
going on,
about that water here. I just got this in the mail here. Matter of fact, I just picked it up and looked at it. Notice by Martin County Water District, your water system recently violated a drinking water standard. I mean, that's some hellacious great news, ain't it?
You're just now finding out?
Yeah. I just checked my mail right there. I picked up everything there a while ago and come in the house, and I just sitting here looking through this and just seen that.
Are you on a well?
No, on city water, Martin County.
So why are they saying your water? It's their damn water.
Yeah. But they let me know, it just failed, some tests, which it ain't the only time.
Yeah, it seems to be an ongoing issue with water.
Yeah, we're constantly getting something there about boiling all the time.
They don't want to let on that fracking fucked up a ton of the water supply.
You got that right.
Yeah. And another thing that we're not really focusing on, too, is that our infrastructure for the water system just really sucks. And if Flint, Michigan was not a fucking eye-opening for a lot of people, they seriously need to look at that shit. And I think a lot of people have a tendency of bitching about, maybe paying $1 more for their water service or whatever. But if it goes to fixing the infrastructure, then in reality, it's worth it, because now the people of Flint are going through some serious issues. And not too long ago, we had the same issue. Didn't make national news, but it's like maybe 30 minutes from my hometown here in Bakersfield. And one of the cities here had started having fucking like yellow water, and they would had like a color discoloration and
turn your clothes all yellow and shit.
Yeah, and I'm like, that's fucking crazy, man. So
well, what's crazy is they might make the prices go higher, but will that money really be used in the right areas? I don't even trust these corporations anymore.
Here's another one, Space. I think you might be able to remember this, and I'm pretty sure here, even a few months before, maybe a little bit more, remember the big spill they had up here in West Virginia?
You mean when the water turned red?
Yeah. Well, whatever.
West Virginia. Yeah, I remember, yeah.
That was pretty big.
There's been multiple spills, actually, and, it's affecting our water table.
Absolutely.
But what's crazy is the EPA does what? Nothing.
Yeah,
but destroy an entire river.
Yeah, but you or I go out here and get a little oil in the ground where we just change oil, and they come by and just haven't seen it. Our ass be going to jail.
Yeah, but you're talking about if everybody wants to pay $1 more or do whatever. If the money that they were getting already was being allocated properly, they'd have enough to do everything they want to do.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
They're not. It's just the corruption. Like what? For someone that was paying attention, the Burns-Oregon deal exposed that the corruption goes all the way down to the smallest town, to the smallest judge, to the smallest law enforcement. It's all the way down. The virus is deeply embedded, and you're seeing that through Chris Ann Hall and the different. She's actually going. Other states are inviting her to come and speak to their delegates and people in their state governments, and there's people that want the truth, because that's the cool thing about her is you when she's speaking, you can tell you're being told the truth. It feels good. The information that she's spreading just feels good. It feels right.
Yeah.
And when did we get that? Where else do you get that from? Nowhere. But the country is hungry for it, and I'll give you an example. When Duck Dynasty first came out, that's why they were so popular. But then, over time, people got bored with it because their shit looked so rehearsed that you could tell you were just, there's no way anybody's life's that fucking interesting. I'm sorry, I don't care. But when they first came out, they were speaking honesty, like basics, teaching the Bible and talking about the Bible. It was just, and the country was like wanted more of it. It was awesome. So I think, we may have a shot.
Well, it's like when all those gun shows came out too, like Top Shot and whatever the other ones were named. They ran for a few years. They got so popular that they were all canceled. The opposite of what you would think, instead of it be expanded, because the word came down from the top to get them off the air because they were making gun sales go through the roof. Yeah. And they spurred an entire new generation that was interested in the firearm sports.
Do you know that is why they shut the shows down?
Yeah, and it was good though, because it did make some people really, really famous, and especially Gabby Franco, because in reality we don't have that many female shooters that professional female shooters and stuff like that. So I think that was good because I noticed that there was a lot more females that are interested in guns after they saw Gabby Franco. Because if you look at her, if you ever met her, she's just a little petite 5'4", Hispanic lady. There ain't nothing special about her, and then you're like, well, if she can do it, I can do it, So
and to go
I
back
think
to
they had his good thing out of it.
To go back to what Wood was saying, the Oregon thing, another thing that sets is the precedent that anybody that was paying attention, now they have to realize that this is a tyranny. Okay, when they're going to go arrest a 70-plus-year-old father of peaceful protesters without a record, that never engaged in any illegal activity. There was never really any charges put against them. They were involved in civil disobedience against their government. There was militia there to protect the ranchers' First Amendment right, but that was it. But yet they've twisted it into something else in the mainstream media, and most people get their 2-second news clip like someone else mentioned, and that's it. That's all they need in their mind. That's done deal.
After fucking with the man's cattle, destroying his ranch, destroying this, they totally sabotage. Whatever they can do, they do. They just try to shut down your whole fucking operation.
So they set the precedent that you have no First Amendment. They set the precedent that you have no Fourth Amendment, because now they're investigating everybody that went up there and was involved in civil disobedience and sedition of the American government. Oh, no. It's preposterous what they're doing.
We'll see what happens with that. Like you got Michelle Fiore and them other guys, those state representatives. It took balls to do what they did. Now we'll see if they were just doing it for political gain and to make a deal, but I don't think they did. I think that they honestly see it just like we see it, and there's people in state government that are seeing it, and I think more are going to see it, and I think what we're going to see is a state secede. Whether it be Texas, Utah, or Arizona, one of those three will be, maybe even Wyoming. Well, out of all the states that passed that legislation to tell the federal government to fuck off, Wyoming's was the most to the point. Wyoming didn't just stick it to one topic like guns or agriculture or something like that. Wyoming says we will not follow any or enforce any unconstitutional federal law. Any. And that's what every single state should be saying right now. But notice how they're all out west. I think the farthest east you got of states standing up is Georgia.
Well, here you go. If you can share this, just share about 4 or 5 seconds of it. I think everybody will really enjoy it.
All right. Well, it's got audio on here.
All right. I just shared it right there. If you see it right there, just play about 5 seconds of it. Let everybody hear it. If they haven't heard it already, this is pretty good right here.
Yeah, I can't. I don't have my audio, buddy. Sorry.
All right. Well,
came from. How dare they say that to Mexico? Well, we win all the time against the United States. Why would they say that? That's what essentially he was saying. And then I see Joe Biden apologizing to Mexico. I'd like to apologize. He was apologizing for me. Do you believe it? They call them the Republican candidates, but hopefully he was apologizing just for me. I love that, you know. Even the Pope was very nice. He did a thing right before the election, right? In South Carolina, I heard, the Pope said something. I said to my people, wait a minute, they're going to vote tomorrow morning. Was it good or was it bad? This was like 10 hours before the polls opened, right? In South Carolina. And my people said, Mr. Trump, it was bad. I said, oh, this can only happen to me. The Pope. What did he say? And basically the Mexicans convinced the Pope that Trump was a bad guy because I want to have a strong border. And when the Pope figured it out, and when we, you know, a lot of people were calling the Vatican, I can tell you, because a lot of people agree with me that we have to have strong borders. But by the time he figured out about the crime and everything else, the next day he was great and they were very nice. But I was just saying, this could only happen to me, where the Pope 10 hours before an election comes out with something. So we're going to make our military strong. We're going to knock the hell out of ISIS, folks. We got to do it. We got to do it. We're going to knock the hell out of ISIS. Got to do it. We have no choice. We're going to take care of our vets. And here's the story, very simply. We're going to be a great country again. We're going to be the smart country again. We're not going to be the dummies that don't know what they're doing. We're not going to be the